Hello everyone, welcome to week 4 of How to Become a Better Artist with me, China Jordan. Now this week we're going to be looking at 3D balls, spheres. They're everywhere. No pun intended. Now the reason why a 3D sphere is super important is because it helps us to turn things into 3D. We're relying on our gradients, which we've just practiced, to show that things are curved. So grab your pencils and let's begin. You might want to grab something circular for this, so I am going to use the inside of some masking tape. So you can either go freehand and draw a circle, or again make life easy for yourself and find something circular, maybe the bottom of a cup or a candle, and then all you're going to do is use your 2B, remember that is our go-to, just to draw that circle. So I just went a bit not the best example, China. Let me do that again. So just go around your circle. There we go. So if you've got any finer hairs coming off, just get rid of those. Now, what we want to do as well is draw a shadow. Things always look more situated when there is a shadow. So we want to imagine that there is a circle that is squashed underneath here. So all I'll do is I'll make the side on the left longer because our light source is coming from the top here. So it needs to be longer on the left, and then as it curves around, it's still nice and curved everywhere, but then it's just going curve around there. The shadow is the hardest part, trust me. So just take your time getting that. It doesn't need to be perfect, we just need a gesture of it. So there is our outline. And what tends to happen with the ball is where the light source is, so luckily that's where my actual light source is, wherever the ball is closest to the light source, that is going to be the lightest area. So imagine perspective, whenever something is closer to something, it becomes bigger, and whenever it's further away, it is smaller. So in this case, when the object is closer to the light is bigger. And then as the ball is further away, the light becomes a lot less. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a bit of a weird analogy, but let's see anyway. What I tend to do for this exercise is it's a bit weird, so bear with me. Remember that value scale that we did a couple of lessons ago? We have 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that's our first 3 values. Now that is going to be around the light source. So what I want to do is very lightly draw a circle-ish around that area. So I'm creating a barrier where I'm not going to put any pencil in there at the moment, because it's just making life easy for myself. I don't have to worry about it, and I can just go from there. So what we want to do now is, because this is 1, 2, and 3, I just want to shade in the whole thing value 4, because what happens is the light is cascading off, and that means that the next value, the next shade, will be shade 4. So let's shade that all in. It doesn't have to be neat and tidy. Don't worry too much. We just want to knock off that white. And it just means that we're giving ourselves some layers that we can build up on. So this is going to be our first layer. And you might notice that I'm changing the direction of my shading strokes. I'm getting a bit of cross-hatching in there just to try and fill all of those gaps. We don't want to see any white in that section. We do want to leave the white in that circle that we drew, so that inner circle. There we go. So it's nice and messy, which is great. Now what we're going to do is test the relationship between the value we've just done and the value of the shadow. So once we start to apply the shadow, the relationship should change. So switch to your 8B pencil now and start to shade that shadow in. And you should notice that the value 4 that we just applied becomes, well, feels a lot lighter. So it's not actually changing. But once we add a high contrast in there, which is our dark value, our shadow, our light values start to look lighter, because instead of white surrounding it, making it look dark, it's black surrounding it, or a dark value. So it's really interesting how relationships change once you introduce a really dark shade. So fill in your shadow now, and hopefully you can recognize that difference too. So for me, and hopefully for you too, the ball actually looks really, really light now. So what we want to do now is work on the shadow inside the ball, and to try and mend that relationship. So what happens, you might remember from your science lessons at school, or if you're still in school, it should be fresh in your brain. So often we have refracted light, and that is when light will hit the floor and then it will bounce back into an object. Now, what happens quite a lot is people will notice there is a highlight on an object and they will leave it really, really light. Now, it is a highlight in the sense that it is lighter than another shade, but it doesn't mean that it reaches value 1 or 2 or even 3 on the value scale. It can mean that the highlight is actually a number 8, but it's next to a number 9. So because it looks lighter, we read that to be super light. We want to show the world that we recognize it's lighter, so we leave it and it's a bit too aggressive. So I want us to make sure we're being brave. So first of all, we're going to create a hard edge. So just like before when we practice our hard edges, and it wants to curve with the ball. So just above that, we want to create another one. So it looks a little bit like, I want to say a cricket ball, or it's just got a belt. There we go. So all we want to do now, sticking with our 8B pencil, is shade in this band that we've created now. I want you to reach number 9. So it's really dark, but it's not black. Still going to be a little bit grainy, which is fine. And I just want you to shade that in. Just don't be afraid to make it dark, because if we make it dark, it means we have more of a range coming from dark to light. So from number 9 all the way to number 1. But if you make it too light, you're only going from, I don't know, number 6 to number 1. So your range is smaller. And remember, we like contrast. So now we've got a hard edge. We've got loads of hard edges, but remember, this is a ball. It's a 3D ball. So everything is really soft. So what we want to do now is remember how we transitioned from a hard edge into a soft edge. And when we did that scale where it was dark all the way to light. So I'm going to do that all the way around this ball. And I'm just going to start at the edge of number 9. And I'm going to go in little strips, okay? So as I push out of that ball, I start to loosen the pressure and it becomes lighter. Now, you might not want to do it with your 8B. You might want to do it with your 2B. So let me try just next to that. See if there's a difference. So it's much sharper already. It means it's less grainy, but it's not as dark. So it's up to you if you want to do a mixture. Maybe you want to go over in both just to get that consistency. But all you want to do now is work your way around the ball and try and get those transitions from that hard edge into the soft edge and make it blend, make it a gradient. I've gone back to my 2B now, but I'm probably going to refine it in a little bit. Anyway, so just work your way around the ball. Make sure you don't miss the edges on the top. We're going to wait to do the bottom. Actually, I'm going to stick to my 8B. That 2B is annoying me. So yeah, don't do anything on the bottom just yet. So hopefully you can see what I'm talking about when I am referring to leaving that highlight too light. So just work on that top half Again, don't put anything inside the center. So I'm just switching back to my 2B, mainly to kind of smooth out the grain, and I'll show you a different way to do this when we are near the end, but this is just helping me to try and reach all those values, but most importantly just to get in these edges near the top. Okay, so as you can see, this at the bottom, that was number 4 on the value scale. So that was actually, it wasn't too light. It was like middle of the range. But now it looks nearly white. And that's because we've sandwiched it between 2 dark values. So I want you to use your 8B and again, make that smooth transition. So we're blending that in and we're making sure that we're trying to reach number 8. So it needs to be 1 shade lighter. You can be forgiven if it's a number 7 as well. But I just want you to appreciate how dark it can actually be for it to still look like a highlight. Okay, so the final bit is to work in this light area on top. It's probably the most difficult because we're going from a light shade into a lighter shade and we want to leave some white paper in the middle. We want to leave number 1. So I'm just going to do that same transition from number 4 this time all the way to number 2. So using your 2B pencil because that's much lighter. So all the way around, keep turning your hand around to suit, or you can move your paper around as well to make life easy for you for a more comfortable position. There we go. So I'm quite pleased with that. Hopefully you should be really pleased with that too. It's not fully over though. There's always tweaks you can make. So this is one of those things where it's quite addictive to keep going. So I'm just going to go for a little bit longer and I'll keep the camera rolling so you can see what I'm doing. But I just want to refine it, and this is where the 2H can come in. So the 2H has to be really, really sharp, okay? See that point? That's quite dangerous. And all this does is it fills in all those little bits of paper that are poking through. And it will start to just even out the drawing. So really get in those nooks and crannies and just see what happens at the end. You might find you really enjoy this process. Cool, so there we go. Fab. So I hope that was helpful. It is a difficult challenge, but it's something you should practice, because this ball or sphere could be my cheek, could be the tip of my nose, it could be anything that's round. So practice this, and if you're feeling brave, please show me. I'd love to see what you've done. Amazing. So join me next week for lesson 5 of our year drawing challenge.